Over the weekend, Paul George was suspended 25 games without pay for violating the league's anti-drug policy. In a statement to ESPN, George said he took improper medication while dealing with his mental health. George will be eligible to return March 25th at home against the Chicago Bulls. So what does Paul George's suspension now mean for the 76ers? Wendy.
Well, it's obviously not a good thing because the Sixers were just beginning to really ramp up, and Paul George has been playing some very good basketball. You know, his role is not what they thought it was going to be when they signed him, because Tyrese Maxey has become the team's, centerpiece. But Paul George is having a great shooting season. In fact, he had a game last week where he made 9 3-pointers. And spreading the floor out for Joel Embiid and VJ Edgecombe and Maxey is very valuable to the team. That said, if you're looking at the other side of it, this team has gotten used to playing without Paul George. They do have, a number of wings on the roster that they can lean on during this stretch. So they start a tough West Coast trip tonight here in LA against the Clippers. So that's going to be a challenge right out of the gate here. And this sounds weird, but, and the fact that it cost Paul George $12 million, no joke either. But the struggle with Paul George is keeping him healthy. And so one thing that if you're looking for a benefit is, he'll come back late in the regular season. It increases the chances of him staying healthy, even though this is obviously something very difficult for him to deal with.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think similar to the conversation we were just having about the Lakers, the Sixers know what the future is, and that is around Tyrese Maxey. Could Paul George be beneficial? Yeah. The Knicks just played them last week when they had all three, Embiid, George, and Maxey. They did manage to get the win, but you can see sort of what the vision was if all three of those guys are healthy and available. But I'm with Wendy. To have him back late in the season, healthy. I don't know the details of the suspension. I assume he still can be around. I don't know for sure, but if he's still a part of team activities and, leaning his veteran expertise, that's a positive, especially for a guy like VJ Edgecombe, right? Like, their games are not similar. Their size is different, but he is a rookie who's been fast-tracked in terms of being able to be a productive member of the Sixers early in this one. This is sad. There's a lot of questions I have around it because mental health is something that we take very seriously. I have a hard time with how this has come down because I would think that the league would want its players to be in the best position possible mentally and physically.
Well, listen, Paul George, obviously, when healthy, was a terrific player. And he's one of the best people, I think, that you can cover in professional sports. He's class personified. So when you hear something like this, you feel bad because he accepted accountability for it. Obviously, he's got some issues going on with his mental health, and he was taking some medication, and evidently he was mistakenly doing so. Nevertheless, we still have an obligation to look at what kind of effect this is going to have on the Philadelphia 76ers. If you're a Sixer fan, you've been disappointed. He didn't play too many games last year. Now he's going to miss games, an inordinate amount of games already. This is after having left knee surgery in offseason and missing games at the start of this season. They're 16-11 when he plays with them this season. They're 11-10 without him, okay? But this is the same guy you signed to a 4-year, $211 million contract. You expected more. And even with Joel Embiid not necessarily healthy, he's averaging like 34 over the last 7 games. He's averaging 26 on the season, okay? And in the end, he's playing more games than Paul George. That's not a good sign. But I will say this, Paul George being out, Wendy, I don't necessarily agree with you in terms of him having a terrific shooting season. I know he's come on a couple of games as of late, but he's shooting 42% on the year. 38% from three-point range is not bad, but 42% from the field, that's certainly not what he usually shoots. So I wouldn't say he's having a great shooting year. He definitely is somebody that benefits the 76ers when he's on the court with Embiid and Maxey on the rare occasion that he is. VJ Edgecombe can use this as an opportunity, hopefully, at some point, to capitalize off of it. He is giving you 15 a game. I'm just of the mindset that, again, this is not a plus. It's not the minus that everybody thinks it could potentially be because that gives him additional time to rest his body, get himself in shape, and be ready because they're the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference. They're expected to make, to be in the playoff picture. And if Paul George misses these 25 games, obviously so, once he comes back, he certainly will have his body rested. Right. He should be even healthier than when he departed, and who knows what that can translate into. But as of right now, this is not news that you want to hear if you're the Philadelphia 76ers, not with the money you doled out for him. I can tell you that much.
One thing I will say, you certainly aren't wanting a $50 million 3-and-D player, but a 40% three-point shooter who defends like him is important for a team. What will be interesting between now and Thursday, this money that Paul is coming out of Paul's pocket, it actually favors the 76ers because it reduces their luxury tax bill immensely. The last couple of years, when Joel Embiid has been injured, the Sixers have made moves at the deadline to get under the luxury tax, which they actually could do again here because they're now so close to it. But now that they've gotten a little bit of extra space, will they make a move to add to this roster? And then there's another potential offshoot that could happen out of this that they can try to spin it into a positive. We'll see.
Okay, so there's an interesting wrinkle. The Sixers...
3 days ago that Luka Doncic was about to get traded, you would have laughed as well. Today is the anniversary of this, the trade that will live in infamy forever in NBA circles and beyond. It was today that Luka Doncic was traded for a package that essentially revolved around the always injured Anthony Davis. And the question has arisen, is it the worst trade in NBA history? I don't even think that is a question. Hembo and I did a book in which we did lists of all these things. And what we had listed as previously the worst trade in NBA history had been Charlotte trading away the rights to draft Kobe Bryant to the Lakers, or after drafting Kobe Bryant to the Lakers for Vlade Divac. At that time, Kobe Bryant was a 17-year-old kid coming directly out of high school. Obviously, we've seen how history turns. In this case, Wendy, and I don't want to pile on, but the reality is what it is, and here we are on the anniversary of it. We had very known commodities and a move being made for reasons that will remain a mystery for the rest of my life. And here we are a year later, and about as predictable a result as we can possibly have imagined. What are the right things to say about the way the NBA has been completely reshaped by a trade that was made a year ago today?
Well, Anthony Davis has been put on the trade market less than a year later, and the general manager who made the trade was fired. And, you know, Luka arriving in L.A., I think there's a possibility the Buss family would have sold anyway, but not only has it reshaped the future of the Lakers franchise, give them a player to pivot to out of LeBron James, but it may have affected the ownership of the team and certainly maybe even slightly the value of the team. Luka still has to, you know, have the roster built out around him and sort of deliver on the promise. But he re-signed a contract in L.A., committing himself to that franchise, and now the Lakers' entire future is built around Luka Doncic, and the Mavericks' future is built around Cooper Flagg, which he became an arrival in Dallas because Anthony Davis got hurt his first game as a Maverick. So it was a trade that, you know, doesn't need decades of perspective to put this analysis on it.
Monica, you're making exactly the right face. You're making the exact face that this deserves.
I remember, now I don't know if you remember this part, but I remember being like, okay, this actually might not be terrible for Dallas, capital I, capital F, if Anthony Davis is able to stay healthy. And so I do think that night, after we all realized that it was, in fact, a real trade, you did think about the possibility. But God, health is so wealth in sports. And I think the context that Greeny just shared, like, the fact that Anthony Davis gets hurt almost immediately. Now, obviously, Dallas could not have been in a better position when it comes to acquiring Cooper Flagg, but this will forever be a sports mind-blowing trade.
So the worst trade in sports history is generally considered to be the Boston Red Sox trading Babe Ruth to the Yankees in exchange for the rights to a Broadway musical called No No Nanette. I'm not making that up. That's an actual thing that happened. That's probably still worse than this. Having never seen No No Nanette, I can't speak to it directly, but I can't imagine that anything else has ever been worse than this. Luka Doncic is going to be the centerpiece of the Los Angeles Lakers for over a decade. He is one of the 3 best players in the world, and that's probably not doing him justice. He's going to continue to be that, and the rest of it just sort of sits where it is. It just sort of felt, Windy, on the anniversary, like putting a little punctuation on it. Give me a final thought.
Well, I will tell you this, is that it's totally changed the way all of us who work within the NBA evaluate possibilities of things. When we hear something, we'll say, well, there's no way that can happen, but well, I can't say that anymore because Luka got traded for AD. So I don't know how many championships, if any, Luka will win, and that will ultimately decide history. But it's changed the perspective of NBA business, and that's saying something.
Okay, fair enough. Let me leave that there for the moment. Again, it's not meant to be piling on. It's meant to be pointing out that 1 year later it looks even worse than it did on the morning we woke up last year. Back to the NFL.